This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Sarah Bareilles, and you're listening to Broadway Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Patty Capone, and you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hi, this is Brian Stokes-Mitchell, and you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
And I was still learning Spanish, and I felt so disconnected. And I always go back to that moment in my head when I think of my listeners of how it could feel to be disconnected due to language.
That's deep.
And I want to help them. Like I go there.
Hey everyone, welcome to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity. Ow!
That was her opportunity. Just get that energy out. Kick your co-host.
All right, we're just going to keep going.
Not kick him.
No, I kicked the table. I kicked the table.
Oh, it looked like a kick.
No, I kicked it. There's a bar down here. Hi everyone, and welcome to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Alan Seals.
And I'm Heather Vickery. And Alan and I started off as two perfect strangers who met by chance and embraced opportunity. Listen in as we chat with other successful people about the risks they've taken to put themselves on a path to creative success. Alan,
Yes.
it's our meetiversary.
Happy meetiversary.
Look at all the chances we've embraced in the last year.
It's been it's been almost a full year, right?
It's been longer than a year because we are at this moment at the Podcast Movement Conference, and it was in early August last year.
Oh, true.
And now it's the end of August.
So it's been 360 something, 60, 70 something. Math.
Keep mathing.
80.
Yeah.
380
Yeah.
days. All right.
But at that same conference where we met,
Yes.
we met today's guest.
Who we've talked about before.
Who we've talked about before.
Who is it?
Wait, I was supposed to ask you that.
I know, but you've got something in here that... Okay.
I'm just going to hop in here if you guys don't.
Do it. She's like, I'm sitting right here, which normally people are like on the computer.
Hey,
they don't
guys.
care. But Lindsay's right here. I'm just going to go back and say this. I think we both fell in love with Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not that kind of love. I mean, maybe a little crush, but not that kind
Just like pod love.
Pod love.
Pod
Like,
love, yeah.
just good juju energy love. Alan, do you want to tell folks all about
Yeah, you've heard us
Lindsay?
talk about Lindsay before, Lindsay McMahon. She's part of the crew that formed this time last year when we decided to create this podcast in the first place. And Lindsay is the co-creator and still one of the hosts of All Ears English, which is an ESL podcast that provides a better way to learn English to help people move from stuck to fearless to fluent in English. And I love everything about this. So
He's geeking out, Lindsay.
Yes, he's really getting into it. Great intro, Alan. I like it. That is it. That's it right there.
all right, and that's all the time we've got. Thank
And
you
we're
so
done.
much.
It's been great.
I want to acknowledge too that we were all sitting in the same room for the first time,
Which almost never happens.
which almost never happened. First time in a year that we've done like an interview similar to this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
our first
yeah.
interview,
Our first
Erica
one,
Swindell, was
Erica
live
was-
and
yeah,
in
yeah,
person,
yeah.
and that's the only other one. So you're
Yeah.
so
It's
special.
amazing. It really is. We don't get to do this very much, and it feels great.
So
It really does.
Lindsay, we've been working together for a while on your podcast and in this past year, but the podcast is 10 years
About
old?
9. So we started
9
in
years old.
2013. So what is that? Yeah, about 10 years, 9 years.
So my question for you, and I don't know these answers, but why did you decide to start a podcast in 2013 when podcasting at that time wasn't such a big deal? Because, and no offense I don't mean any offense by this, but you might take offense to this. You don't seem like a techie person. And at the time in 2013, podcast was for nerds.
Yes, it was. Maybe I'm kind of a nerd at heart, but I never really learned the tech. Oh, no. Yeah, it's true. No one knew about podcasting at that time. It was incredible. I was a listener of podcasts. So my favorite show at that time was The Unmistakable Creative by Srinivas Rao. I don't know if you've heard of his show. He's still out there. He's an OG for sure of podcasting. I was a listener, was really into it. And I went to my friend at that time who was in Boston. I said, hey, let's start a podcast. This would be fun. And she was an ESL teacher as well. And she's like, okay, let's do it. And so it just took off. It just sort of, I think it was a combination of luck, timing, our branding, and we loved it.
So you were an ESL teacher in a past life?
Yes, I had taught English in Japan. I had lived in Tokyo for a year and a half. I had traveled through South America for a year. Did you live in Tokyo?
No, he
just didn't know that
I
he
didn't
did
know
this.
this.
Oh, you didn't know? Okay, yeah. I guess maybe I never told you. But
No, I
that's
never
how, that's how it got started, through travel and teaching.
That's so cool. And okay, so you're listening to this podcast. You just hit up your friend in Boston. You're like, let's start an ESL podcast. But what I love about Alles English, and I've told you this so many times, like today alone, is that you don't say like, okay, we're going to go over sentence structure today. We're going to go over these vocabulary words. Well, you explain it, because you explain it a lot better than I do.
Yeah, you know how I would explain it best is with adult learners, right? We don't teach kids. This is not kids. This is adults. Yeah. And they have their own time. They have a lot of stuff to do in their lives. You have to capture their heart before you capture their head, so they can actually learn that language. That's what it's all about. If you don't get to the heart first, it sounds cheesy, but I actually believe it. You got to get to the heart first and then go to the head, and they do retain it at that point, because they become addicted, and then they come back and they get a little bit of heart, a little bit of head. Edu-tainment is what I'm calling it now.
And
it works.
Edu-tainment.
Yeah. I think it's the future.
I am looking for something like that for French. So if you...
Yeah. Well, there's Coffee Break French. So Mark Pendleton's brand. It's great.
Okay.
It's also good. Different format, but he also teaches in his own unique way.
All right.
So
I will check that out.
Yes.
I've gotten to a point where I wake up dreaming that I desperately need to be speaking French, and I don't know
You should
how.
be dreaming in French. That's the goal, right? Yeah.
Oh, we're getting there.
Those are like your anxiety dreams.
Slow
You're like,
but
I
steady.
have to learn French.
Why do you want to learn French for travel?
Yeah, so I have long felt that I want to live in France for part of the year.
Love it.
And I've been manifesting it for a long time, talking about, intentional creation. So I took my 16-year-old daughter to Paris last month for a week, and it was incredible. And I don't know about you guys, but have you ever been someplace where when your feet touch the ground, your soul all of a sudden feels tethered?
Oh, I love
Disney
it.
World.
Perhaps. For me, it's Paris.
Look how different you guys are. That's what makes a good co-hosting team.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
there's something, I feel like I've lived in Paris over and over again in many different lives. I can't explain it. And so on the last day of our trip, we had done everything. We had done everything that we wanted to do. And we're like, well, what are we going to do today? So we grabbed our books and we went and we sat down by the Seine on the riverbank for hours. We would get up, we would go get food, we would find a cafe, we would come back, and we would sit there. And as the sun was setting, I thought, okay, 8 years, my youngest kid goes off to college. What's a good month to try this? Well, March is a good month. So March 2030, I'm going to live in Paris.
Love it.
I'll probably vacation some, I'll work some, but it's going to happen. And then I'm like, okay, so I've got 8 years to become fluent in French.
You can do that.
And now it shows up everywhere. But that's what we do in this
100%.
show, right?
Yes.
Is we start, like, that's what manifestation is. You declare something and then you change how you show up in the world to create it.
Yes.
So let's bring that back to you, because I think that's so fascinating, Lindsay. You were an active teacher.
Yes.
And you got this like wild hair to start a podcast because you liked podcasting, and podcasts are cool.
Yes.
And now this is your like full-time, wonderfully revenue-inducing business.
Yes.
So when did that happen? Like, what was that change like? And what kind of risk did you have to embrace to make that happen?
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, often when we start, so this show is really a passion project. And I had another business at the time, which was an ESL tutoring company. Very different model. I hired contractors in New York. This was when I was living in New York and in Boston, hired them remotely, paid them 50% of what I made on the student. And then they would go and tutor the student. And that was it. I thought that was going to become my big business. And I was with All Ears English just on the side. Hey, this is fun. We hang out all day on Sundays and record all day. But it was fun. Like, we ordered pizza, hung out. It was great. I was like, this will just be a hobby. And at some point, All Ears English just caught on. And that became the one that where I saw the scale and I saw the revenue potential and the directions we could take All Ears English in. And I was like, okay, this is where my love is in this brand. It's not in the other one.
What was the moment? And was this like an exciting moment or a fearful moment, or kind of both, where you were like, I'm going to stop teaching and start tutoring, and then all of a sudden I'm going to dive into podcasting, which still, what year was that?
Yeah.
Because even now in 2022, it's still nearly impossible to earn from podcasting.
Unless you're Lindsay McMahon.
Unless you're Lindsay.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah, it was, if we want to go into real logistics, it was about 2 years where I had All Ears English on the side as my hobby. And I was I was tutoring one-on-one still and hiring the contractors in New York at the same time. And I would bring All Ears English to my students, be like, here's our material. Like, this is your homework. And that was great. But it was about 2015 because there was a big challenge around my co-host leaving the business. We can go into that a little bit. Some of it. And I ended up hiring my new co-hosts. I hired two.
Wow.
I was going to hire one, loved them both, hired both.
I love
And
that.
it was the time when it was about 6 months after I hired one of them is when we launched our first online course. And that gave me the revenue to say, okay, now this could be a full-time income. I can drop the tutoring now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the online course, I guess, did you create all of this on your own and just to put yourself out there and tried it? Because
Kind of. Yeah. I bought a course on how to make courses. The course by
Damn, you are badass. Because I never watched that shit. I paid for it and then I never watched them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what most people do. That's the online course model, right? That's kind of what happened. I actually did the course. It was a course by David Siteman Garland. I don't think he's even publishing this course anymore. I followed every module, just did everything. Just put it up there and just let's see what happens.
That is so cool.
wow.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Alan and I consistently marvel about with you, and I think it's part of why he had his jaw dropped when he realized that you were an ESL teacher to begin with, is that you have these fun, easy, conversational episodes that they work because you've branded them as ESL.
Yes.
And it's marketing. It's really clever marketing. Did you just know that? Like, how did you land on that? Because I remember the first time we met, first of all, I was like, oh, what's your podcast? Do you remember this? We were in Mary's car, Mary Rutt from Latter-day Lesbian.
Remember when we went out for dinner?
We were going out for Thai food, the four of us. I know, right? And
That's a good meal.
you said, yes, my show's called All Ears English. And I said, what's it about? And you said, well, what do you think it's about?
Interesting.
And I said,
I don't remember saying that.
English as a second language. And you were like,
Boom.
yes.
Right answer.
And then at dinner, you're just this fun, unassuming person. And Alan kind of drops your download numbers. And we were all like, what? Because you've done really well.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I know you've worked your ass off for it. So yeah, like, did you just fall into this marketing? Like, what's the background there?
With marketing?
Mm-hmm.
So I've never taken like a marketing course. I didn't major in business. I majored in psychology undergrad. So there may be a little something there.
Interesting.
But it wasn't that. I read a lot of Seth Godin before I don't know. Do you know
I
Seth
love Seth
Godin?
Godin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were talking about that yesterday. Love him. I kind of subscribe to a bit of the way he sees marketing, which is more movements and inspiring people and actual meaning behind what you're doing. I think the reason it works is because I believe in what we're doing. Or the phrase, again, a little cheesy, but it's true. Connection, not perfection. That came out in like episode 50 organically through one of these conversations. My original co-host and I were trying to say, okay, what do we like? This is how you guys should approach learning language. It's connection, not perfection. We looked at each other. We're like, oh, wow, that's it. And so eventually I trademarked the phrase and we use it everywhere. It's because it's authentic. So it is a little marketing, but it's more just like, this is how I think language should be learned. And I'm speaking with human beings that I respect. I'm not going to speak down to my listeners, where a lot of teachers might speak down to their listener or just kind of like, I don't know, just lower the bar. We raise the bar or we keep it normal. We speak at a normal speed. We just might amplify our voices a little more. So I think they feel respected.
What was one thing, and I suspect the co-host leaving and having to then turn that into two co-hosts instead.
Yeah.
Like moments, that included these moments where you were thinking, this is a setback, this is a failure, I'm not doing this well enough.
Yes.
I want to walk away.
Oh my God, it was terrifying. So when she left, I remember just having conversations with myself, like, what do I do here? I feel there's something special here. Like, in your heart, there's a real intuition where there is something special about this brand and it has to go on. It has to live on. But making that decision to then go and pursue continuing, which involved a whole mess, which I don't need to go into now, but it was a mess and terrifying for me. That was a really dark winter for me. So literally it was like the winter time, and I was also going through a breakup at the day. It was just, personal life seems to converge with business life, right? It all happens at once. It was rough. And then launching the first online course was tough too. I mean, it's not like we opened and we got 1,000 sales on day one, right? We got like 6 sales on day one. And I was like, is that good? I don't know. And then 2 sales that month, 4 sales a month for the next few months. And I just didn't know. I had a payroll at that point where I was paying a few people, and it started to get a little bit like, wow, I actually have to make sales to pay my employees. But I work a lot, so it works out in the end. It just takes care of itself.
It's the generator in you.
Yeah.
You produce a lot of episodes.
Yes.
You put out a lot of content.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
How do you continue to love it?
Oh, man. It's a good question. I think about my listeners a lot. Like, I think they're always in my head because I know them, right? I was them living in Japan. I was them living I lived in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, for about 3 months. And I had moments of feeling really disconnected socially. I was dating a woman from Spain at the time, and we traveled together to South America. We had our whole journey in South America together, and she would always immediately kind of make friends with other in Colombia. We'd be on a beach together, and I was still learning Spanish, and I felt so disconnected. And I always go back to that moment in my head when I think of my listeners of how it could feel to be disconnected due to language.
That's deep.
And I want to help them. Like I go there. I don't know.
No, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I don't want anyone to feel that way.
Yeah. I mean, and going back to what I shared about Paris, I can see that. Like, I want to be in.
You want to be in. Exactly. And I should connect you to one of my listeners who I love, who lives in Paris. She's fantastic. Please. We had dinner with her and her husband a few years ago. They're great. We should connect. Yeah.
How has this grown beyond where you initially expected it? Are there things that have happened that you're looking back and you're like, I would have never planned for that, and it's taken me to this incredible place?
Chance, baby.
Chance, baby.
Chance. There's a lot of chance, right? I think when you follow your intuition about something, you just run into chance. Like the next thing happens, right? The next door opens. So, I mean, we were able to do a couple of live events in Tokyo, which has been amazing. In 2018 and 19, pre-pandemic times, right? Yeah. I'm hoping we can get back there. But being able to take my employee Jessica to Japan on all ears English and be there and that's an amazing perk for her, right? I mean, she's been with us for 9 years. She loves it. And then just different opportunities opening, companies reaching out for partnerships, licensing content, that kind of thing is happening more and more. I think in the marketplace, large companies like, large textbook companies are saying, hey, we don't have the content that people want anymore. So they're coming to the creators now.
Oh, that's brilliant.
To say, hey, we want to license your content. And then they have the marketing chops, right? Like we know like person-centered marketing, but we don't really have marketing at scale as we're not marketers. We're just creators. So partnering with larger companies that are going to do that kind of thing is hopefully the future.
That is brilliant. All right, y'all, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Hey, BPN listeners, The Flame, an original podcast musical on the Broadway Podcast Network, is coming to life live in New York City at 54 Below on September 15th at 7 p.m. Come see Tony nominee Jen Colella reprise her role as Jo, everyone's favorite bar regular, alongside TikTok star JJ Neiman, Ain't Too Proud Stephanie Francis, and more. Here at The Flame, your neighborhood LGBTQ bar, everyone is family. Get your tickets today for this once-in-a-lifetime live performance of The Flame, a new musical at 54 Below, at bit.ly/theflame54. And for BPN listeners, use the code FLAME5 for $5 off at checkout. So head to bit.ly/theflame54 to join us for this very special performance of The Flame.
And we're back.
Looking back though, are there any moments that you can pick out that sort of were like seemingly insignificant at the time that now have turned into bigger things?
Oh, it's hard to say. I should have thought about this. You should have sent me the questions.
They're always on the fly, Lindsay.
I don't know. You know what? When I think back to it, it's a blur of hard work, but also just getting up every day and being excited that it's Monday. Like I honestly
That's pretty badass.
I get
actually,
excited, like
right?
great,
Yeah.
like all these things I'm going to tackle. I feel so blessed to love what I do. So there's no one moment, right? That's kind of what entrepreneurship is. You just take the good with the bad, the craziness. You should talk to my wife. I mean, she's like, you're crazy. And she tries to keep me from being too crazy, but we get crazy about our businesses.
We can,
you know?
Yeah, if it's aligned, right? If the things you're saying yes to are the right things, it's pretty impactful. And yet, when we take these kinds of risks, they don't always work out.
No.
What is your relationship with failure like? I mean, have you? I mean, we're talking about all this incredible success, and every time I talk to you, something else, I'm like, this chick is just badass. Like every time, but nobody succeeds all the time. So
no, of course not. Yeah. So let's see. In terms of we've launched product like within the business. We've launched courses that I thought for sure were just gonna take off. They're gonna be great, and people just don't get it. Even though, like, for example, we launched a product where they're listening to a group of us speaking together rather than just one-on-one. You could imagine as a French learner, that's useful, but it fell flat.
Sure, because it's hard.
Yeah. The hardest thing about failure is not really understanding why it failed. And we don't always get that data. Right. And not just in business, but in life too. Like, we don't always know what we did wrong with something.
Sure.
At what point did we make a wrong turn?
But that's the core of my professional work, is helping people look at what didn't go right and what are the lessons. So maybe you don't know what caused things to go wrong, but you certainly know what you learned from it.
Yes.
And we can rebuild. And that's where you get your resilience from.
Exactly. You can always come back. So not putting too much stock in any one product or project or course or revenue stream, and then always building others at the same time. But it means you're working all the time, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do for fun?
Oh my God. Thank God for my wife. She keeps me outside, outdoors. We go hiking a lot, skiing. We travel. We're both travelers. I was the one that traveled a ton in my 20s, but she gets me booking flights now.
Yes.
So thank God. She's the one who's very dedicated to balance.
And you have one dog or two?
We have one dog.
One dog?
Yeah.
And they just got married, and
I know.
the cutest little,
Congratulations.
not her and the dog, her and her wife.
I
Has
love
the
my dog,
cutest
though.
little picture with the doggy in the
We'll have
tuxedo
to
collar.
send us a picture. We'll put it on, because now people look at I know that our social media manager is going to be like, I want to see the dog, and he's going to want to see the dog.
You can have that photo for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
No, that's super cool. I wonder, like, here, Heather, you and I are here still because of this time last year, because of podcast. And now, like, this is day 0 of podcast movement, because it officially starts tomorrow.
I know, crazy, right?
Today is all pre-meeting stuff and this and that. And like, the three of us have just been out there. It's like spider networking out with and talking with everybody and learning all this great stuff. And it's interesting to look at where we were a year ago.
I know.
And now where we are, and everything. What is it? It's not recency bias. It's confirmation bias.
Confirmation
bias.
bias.
It's like we're finding the answers we don't know we're looking for until we hear them.
Yes.
And so, like, that's what's exciting to me about being here now, the three of us, a year later, and we've all been working together and we've all been helping each other, and it's this really fun energy. And what you said, why I brought that up is because when you were saying a second ago about it's just being an entrepreneur, and everybody here, everybody at these conferences, everybody at basically in podcasting, it's all labor of love.
Yes.
And you have to go for years. Most times, I guess, before.
Yeah.
Yeah, years, unless you're smartless, and Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes, and Will Arnett.
Well, but I mean, they did all their years beforehand.
Good
right,
point.
right.
Good
So
point.
they paid their dues as starving artists.
There's always.
Yeah.
But my point being is that the people that are here are all about building each other up, because everyone's got a slightly little different skill set, and we don't know it's out there and exists.
Yes.
And then when we get together, all of a sudden everything just starts to click.
So good.
And
It's
I love that chance. That's the embracing chance. That's why like come to these things. And it's like, okay, cool, another conference. But then the networking and the people you can see, and like, oh yeah, I forgot that thing we sort of talked about a year ago. Now we're ready to really implement it.
Yes.
I love that about the podcasting industry in general. And people will often, I'm sure both of you hear this as well, like, tell me about podcasting. What's it like? Or I want to start a podcast. I'm like, this is the nicest group of humans that I have
really
ever had
is.
the privilege of spending time with, because there are so many, there's no competition. We're all like, here, let me tell you what I know. Like, let me help you. Let's collaborate. Let's do things together. And I can't imagine, maybe I can, how much growth there would be if other industries would embrace their quote unquote competition like that.
It's a super collaborative industry.
So let me ask you a question about that then. In podcasting right now, and we were sort of talking about this earlier in another meeting we were having, Lindsay, with somebody else, was that you can regulate TV, you can regulate radio because it's on a country by country. There's a physical, there's boundaries, but the internet is boundless. Mm-hmm. The internet, to an extent, cannot be regulated. When your country shuts down your ways of communication, you go to Twitter, right? And so now podcasting is the new wave of entertainment, of infotainment, and along with YouTube and along with all these other places that are all playing together. Yeah. So I wonder, Heather, my question for you then is, if you think podcasting, once the big corporations latch onto it, like they have TV and film,
gonna fuck it all up?
Is it going to fuck it all up? Or is that an unattainable goal for corporations? Like they have to adapt to the industry versus the industry adapting to them.
My initial instinct is that option B is what's going to happen. And even if not, I think just by the nature of the industry, the little guy, the little indie will still be its own community. And maybe, we already know that we're not smartless. We already know, we
are smartless.
Yeah. Well, that's just you, honey. It's just you.
Speak for yourself.
When people talk about podcasts, I laugh. My other show, The Brave Files, is a 1.5% global podcast. And I think yours is 1%. Yours is like 0.2 or some ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, you mean in terms of like the
charting? Yeah. What is yours? All ears and
I don't know exactly, like on pod sites or.
I know. Listen notes. I'm gonna pull that shit up right now.
Yeah, pull it up. Yeah.
But people are like, "Wow, that is so impressive," and it does feel impressive. And we've worked really hard, but it's nothing like these, like revisionist history.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
gosh.
right?
Yes,
like
Malcolm Gladwell,
or the
Yes.
NPR shows that are all. So they're already there. There's already this big top tier. And yet here we all are producing. And I was thinking today was all about podcasting as a business. And I don't podcast as a business. I podcast business adjacent. Mm-hmm. It's aligned, but it's not how I'm making my income. So I was kind of coming in and out and all of it. And I had this moment of thinking there are so many people like me here who take the week off work, who either bring their kids, because I think it's very cool. Podcast Movement has a whole child care center. Like they want to make this accessible, or they leave them at home or whatever. And they come and learn about honing something that just brings them joy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And not money. Because most people don't make money on podcasting.
Right. Yeah, it's incredible. I think some of it might be due to the way that podcasts are structured with the feed, right? Like we're not beholden to any one platform. And I kind of hope that continues. I hope the RSS feed never dies, because that is kind of the source and the reason for the creativity. You as the publisher are in control, and you can be everywhere.
Podcasting, I think, is a macro. Yeah, it's a micro example of the macro internet phenomenon that isn't going away. It is the new norm of like everyone can sign up. Anyone can sign up for Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. But you say one thing that goes viral and all of a sudden you're Insta famous.
Yes.
And
I keep trying.
Then you hashtag tweet 100. You've got.
I tried, Jay. I tried. We're going to talk to Jay later this week.
So you've got all of a sudden these opportunities to say what you want, and hopefully everyone's doing it respectfully. That's another conversation. But you can find people who think like you or even disagree with you. You can have healthy debates, and you can take this to a public level. Whereas before, to get on TV, to get on the radio, to get on anything, you couldn't do that before 1998.
You had to be discovered.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a lot of what Seth Godin writes about, actually. Speaking of, inspirations, he talks about like getting chosen, being picked. We don't have to be picked anymore. We pick ourselves,
But
I pick me.
Let's go back. I
pick me
you
first
too.
for kickball.
Oh, I'd pick both of you first for kickball. I would
I don't know
not
if I'd be the best asset on the kickball
I
team.
would not be playing kickball, and you guys would not pick me, and I know it, so that's okay. I will be the cheerleader on the side.
Yeah, I'll pour the drinks. Make sure we have beer in our hands.
But let's think about, because I think this is a really fascinating element to the conversation, and it really relates to sort of your background, Lindsay, is when we talk about this community, and I think the three of us are all kind of very different stages of podcasting success, all feeling successful, but different levels. What is the chance? What is the risk? What is the embrace in this arena? What do you guys see?
So in terms of what could happen in the future, like
Sure.
what's the opportunity?
Yeah.
Oh, I think the challenge is, as independent creators, how do we continue to be true to what our listeners and make sure that we're true to the content that we know works, regardless of outside forces that come in, like money, what comes in and tries to guide your content. Luckily, right now, I think the sponsors out there respect the shows for how they are. But I just wonder in the future, how would that, what would that look like?
Sure.
Right. If they,
Yeah. Well, it's like an executive producer. If a show is derived from Lincoln, Lincoln Motor Company, that wants an automotive podcast, then of course they're going to have direction in there. But is that going to be the most entertaining thing? Probably not.
Exactly.
Because it's not going to be authentic.
Right. So those episodes, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what's going to be really, really, or that's what I think continues to be important about podcasting and then social media too, is that the people who are the most authentic in who they are and connecting with their listeners. That's another thing TV and film doesn't have.
Yes.
Is because you could actually have a near real-time feedback loop with your listeners. You can put an episode and then they tweet you or they slip in your DMs or they do whatever you want, right? So you can constantly change. And I love that. Man, now that we're talking about it, the internet's just great. But
Except when it's not.
I think podcasting is my favorite, though, of all the, obviously.
Absolutely.
I mean, I just struggle. I even struggle with video a little bit. I love
me too.
the connection we have, how intimate this is with your listener. It's incredibly intimate versus video. The visual aspect adds complications.
I mean, you're literally in someone's ear and living their life with them, right?
Extremely
You're
intimate,
walking, doing dishes, doing laundry,
they take
driving.
you to go grocery shopping.
Absolutely.
Wherever.
It's very personal.
Well, we just saw that presentation from Edison Research. That, the people trust podcasts. That's what the takeaway is.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Anyway, so
Lindsay, one thing we've seen week after week, interview after interview, that so many people say is really important when it comes to intentional risk creation, manifestation, is relationship building. How has relationship building played a part in your success?
That's a good question. It's become even more important in the last few years. I think in the beginning I overlooked that. I'll take that back. On the podcast itself, for like the first 100 episodes, we actually invited other bigger podcasts on our show. The first quarter of the first 100 episodes, so like 25 out of 100 were other big podcasters on our show. And I think that's what helped us to get going. And we built the relationship with them. So I know pretty much everyone in my industry.
Love that.
That's huge. But when I would come to events like this, I would talk to like 3 people the whole weekend. And I'd be like, I'm scared. I would be an introvert. I didn't know anyone and I felt awkward. Like, I should be out at that event, but I don't want to, hiding in my room sometimes. So I didn't really build the relationships within podcasting. I think now I'm starting to a lot more, right? And we met last year, starting to get to know other people that and just building the network more. And this is where I feel like I'm starting to dig in a bit more. But it's so important. We just have to push ourselves.
Yeah.
But we have to, I don't know, maybe we just have to meet a few people that get us going.
Yeah, and it's the comfort level of where you are, right? And when you're new into the community, you're like, I don't know. And I'm reminded of, you probably don't even remember this. I wonder if Alan will. Last year at this conference, and again, we'd all gone to dinner, and then we went to the big event hosted by iHeartRadio. Questlove was DJing. It was super fun, but we all kind of walked in together. And we were all feeling very protective of each other. And you went to the bathroom, Lindsay.
I did, yeah.
And do you remember this? And then you of course went to live your life, because we're not we're not attached to each other, but we were all really worried. We're like, where's Lindsay? She didn't come back.
That
Is she
was
okay?
so
Did she call
sweet.
in?
I remember that.
Yeah,
it
it
was
was like
so
30
sweet.
minutes later. We're like, oh, there she is. Oh, okay.
She texted. She was like, I'm just talking to
I
other
got
people,
I-
weirdos.
It was really sweet of you guys. I got there. I was like, okay, I guess I should go network, right? I guess I should go network. So like, even though the music was like boom, 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 I couldn't hear anyone I was talking to. It was completely useless. And then I see Alan kind of like, bobbing in and out, weaving and kind of trying to find. It was actually the sweetest thing.
We just really
You guys
think
are
we're
so
self-important.
sweet.
We're like, but if Lindsay's
It's
not talking to
nice.
us, what is she doing?
But it's nice. Like you need to have a community. You need
Yeah.
to have your friends
Yeah.
at Podcast Movement too. You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Yeah.
Like we have to branch out and then we have to have anyways.
I mean, we were in the middle of like coming out of lockdown in downtown Nashville where there was no masks
Oh, it was
in general.
a
Remember
little
all
scary.
of that? Yeah, that was all weird anyway. But that was a different time.
That was
Nashville's
a
a crazy
different
place.
I remember
time.
back in the day when
Okay.
everyone used to
Now
wear
I am going to
masks.
kick him under the table.
Go for it. Come on.
That's my arthritis.
Okay, so I am curious.
Me too.
Oh my God. Okay, deep breaths.
Woosah.
No, not you. You stop talking.
Okay.
You're distracting me.
Okay, I'm stopping right now.
It's like a fucking 4-year-old. Swear to God.
Yeah.
What was my question? You asshole.
I don't
Okay, no. Here's my question.
Okay.
And we've gotten funny responses because I ask this every episode. What chance do you think you might take next?
Oh, yes. That's a good question. What I want to do next is I want to do more speaking. So
Yes.
more live event speaking, whether it's here, not sure if it'll be here, or just in Denver, in my city of Denver, as become known in podcasting as the podcaster in Denver, and get on a stage and start getting past that. I'm not the best public speaker, but having the experience of podcasting, I feel like I can definitely do it. You know, I can
Absolutely.
elevate my voice. I can put together something. Yeah, that's what I would like to do.
I love
Like to do
that.
more
And
of
I have to
that.
tell you, you're going to slay from the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I
yeah,
hope
I
so.
agree.
I hope so.
agree. I mean, do you want to talk about podcasting, or do you just want to like
I
use the
think-
podcasting to
yeah.
start talking about other things?
A little bit of both. So yeah, exactly. So starting with podcasting and then more broadly probably into business, creating a business around
Mm-hmm.
a meaningful business that means something to you as the founder and means something to your clients and your listeners.
Well, you said the course on starting a course doesn't exist anymore, so
Yeah.
there's a hole you can go
Yes.
fill.
And
Yeah,
I'm
I-
here for that. I was like,
Yeah.
maybe you can teach me the course building course.
I would like to start to get into helping people podcast and on the like envisioning side, creative side, like how do you not so much the tech and not so much the editing, but what are we actually talking about and how are you going to make sure your listeners want this and it's right for
Yes.
them and there's a match between you and your listeners.
That's a real skill. And there's a whole coaching business attached
yes.
to
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Do you foresee what you're currently doing with All Ears English and growing that and your courses there sort of maintaining itself, and then you as Lindsay step out and add this on in your life?
That's it's so hard to know. I actually love being behind the microphone. I love doing my show with Michelle every week. I just love sitting down with my co-hosts. I actually genuinely, so if I stop loving that, I'll hire a co-host. I wonder how that'll go. I don't want to think it's never about, it can't be about any one person.
Right.
It's about a brand vibe, a show vibe, a feeling, how we make them feel, the things we do. So I have to believe I could hire out someone else. I think I could.
Probably.
And then kind of move into something else. But I would kind of like to start that network idea. You know, I would like to see All Ears English live beyond just this one show or these two shows.
Yeah.
And start to kind of create something bigger around a way of teaching.
You guys should see her face right now. Like, I see all the ideas
Everything's
starting to
turning.
move.
Yeah.
She's like, I need to write this down. I can see it.
Yeah,
It's
it's there.
magical. The other thing is you can keep hosting
Sure.
and you could delegate
I
all
could.
the rest of the shit that keeps you busy
Right.
all the time.
Because you wonder, right? What if that is the magic to you, like being on the mic? Would the whole business lose its magic if you stopped being on the mic and started delegating everything and started just doing marketing or ad sales or
So
something?
much of my work
Wow.
is around helping entrepreneurs feel empowered enough to only do the parts that they love and it requires their brain, and then paying somebody else to do the rest, because
Love
that's
it.
how you grow.
Love that idea.
Yeah.
It's so important, right?
Yes.
But then it's so important. But then I sit down and it's like Monday morning and I have this list of things to do. And I think I could delegate that, but I should just get it done. Oh, no, that one I could just get done.
No.
I can knock that out.
We're going to have to talk about this.
That's hard. I had the same I still have the same problem. Especially just going on, even going on vacation.
Yes.
And there is a team that's a little bit there, like back there covering and doing things. But you and I are the same in that respect, that we're like, I just need to do it because I know it'll get done the right way.
Yeah, but you guys, it's like teaching your kids to tie their shoes. And I know, Lindsay, you don't have kids, but if you don't teach them to you do not want to be tying their shoes when they're fucking 20.
No.
You don't, right?
No.
And so it's the same thing. Like you have to relinquish control. Just because somebody doesn't do it like you do it doesn't mean it's wrong. And if it frees you up to do things that you love more and that make you more money, let that shit go.
It's true. Sometimes I wonder if there's a little bit of an identity that gets built around being the person that does it, and something in my ego gets fed when I can swoop in and be like, I can take care of that. Like, someone on my team will come to okay, done, boom, here's what you need. There's something there, which is what we have to dig into.
And it's self-sabotage.
Absolutely.
It's keeping you
100%.
from achieving more because you're too busy.
100%.
You keep yourself purposely busy so you can't take the chance of failing.
Yep.
But the ironic thing is you can be completely aware of this and still continue to do it.
Oh, totally.
I've been aware of it for a long time.
You can be, but awareness is the first key to unlocking it, right?
Yeah.
And it may take a long, long time, but you'll get there.
The first part of the Triforce. We need all 3 pieces of the Triforce. No Zelda fans? Come on!
My kids are Zelda fans, but I've never played. I don't do video games.
Come on, but you were
Actually,
a
don't
child
either.
of the 80s.
I was a child of
was.
the 80s.
I didn't have any video game. I had like Game Boy is what I had.
I didn't even have
Do
that.
you remember the color Game Boy? And Game Boy
Yes,
White color?
I
And
think
that was
so.
the big deal.
Big deal.
All right, folks, one more quick break. All right, welcome back. You still with us? Here's the rest.
What do people say when they're like, you're at a party and like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Lindsay. I'm Bruce. And they're like, hey, Bruce, what do you do? Oh, I do something like that stereotypically is really impressive. Like I'm in finance, right? I run a hedge fund. What do you do? I'm a podcaster.
I should start saying that.
What do you say?
I'm going to start saying that from now on. For some reason, something has kept me from saying that. I've been saying I'm an ed tech. I own an ed tech company. Is what I've been
Which is
saying.
also badass.
Which is kind of ed tech podcasting.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start saying I'm a podcaster.
Can you say it like that?
Podcasters.
Can you practice?
I'm a podcaster.
You gotta hold the mic real close. I'm a podcaster.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. So fun. We can have these little pleasures. You know what I mean? And something is like, you can't have that. You can't do that. But yeah, I can have that. You can do that.
Oh
We
my
can all
gosh.
do that.
Heather, what do you say
I love that.
when people meet you?
I say that I'm a success and leadership coach who also has 2 podcasts. And I also say I'm a speaker and a best-selling author. I just put it all out there.
Love it. You have to.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah. The way we answer that question matters. What do you say?
What do I say?
You do a lot of things.
I know, right?
I do. It depends. It really depends on what context I'm in. So here, like today, I was with All Ears English, and tomorrow I'll be with Broadway Podcast Network, and then next week I'll be back with Google again. And that's talking about self-sabotage. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Like prioritizing within the priorities is even like is even hard.
Sticky. Yeah.
It's sticky.
Ooh.
It is very sticky. So it's tough. So it depends on who I'm with. I usually just say my name and
Go with the flow.
And I'll go with the flow and depending on what the other person has said, I'll say I'll bring up something to relate to that.
Sure.
I'm
Makes
afraid
sense.
to ask this question.
Uh-oh.
But when people find out you podcast, how often do you mention this show versus
Was it Chance?
the theater? Yeah, was it Chance? Versus the theater podcast with Alan Seals. It's with Alan Seals.
In that voice.
I never get tired of making fun of that.
I often, usually if I'm in the Broadway space, then I get introduced as co-founder, CTO of VPN. And then they're like, well, how many podcasts do you like? Whoa, you host 150 podcasts? Like,
It's a big number.
No,
Pretty
I
impressive.
wouldn't. No,
A lot of mic time.
Hell no, I don't. Yeah. So I host my own solo and I have one that I co-host. And so I'll go into both of them. Yeah.
I do too. It's in my bio. But because I fucking love this show. I love working with you, collaborating with you, but I love the the people I love the conversations, and we were okay. So I want to bring this back because we talked about this earlier today on the little lunch break. We were specifically talking about, I know I was pointing at Alan. Alan and I were talking about it, but we were talking about you, Lindsay, what we said earlier, which was your really brilliant way to market small talk, fun conversations as a way to teach people English as a second language, and how we want to use that method to market this podcast. Was it chance?
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to use the more successfully, more aggressively. I don't know what it is, but like, you guys, when you listen to this show, you can see potential chance opportunity. Like, I think you can start to envision ways to embrace chance more consistently in your life to achieve more of the things that you want.
Well, it's leading by example. We're bringing stories into the internet, which will live in forever, for evs, that are success stories of people taking risks and succeeding and failing, and then turning that failure into further success.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because I look at failure, and I'm curious, Lindsay, what your relationship with failure is, right? And my look at failure as, in the moment, it sucks. Depends on, you could lose a big deal. You could hurt a relationship. It could just not go your way. In some way, your ego is bruised.
Oh, yeah.
And but then you wouldn't be where you are now if failure didn't take away a distraction that opened up another opportunity.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. For sure.
So what's your relationship with that?
I think that my upbringing helped because my dad was a business owner. And I've heard stories of my dad, like before, right when I was born, like his lunch hour going in the alley and crying because he couldn't pay his mortgage on his office. He was an optometrist, a private practice optometrist. Couldn't, just terrified having a new kid, an entrepreneur, just starting a business, ton of risk. So the risk I take has never been anything compared to the risk he took his whole life. And I saw him take this kind of risk. And he always said to me, like, take risks, be your own boss, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
Why is your risk less important than his?
I'm just saying financially it's less.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because again, we can plug in a podcast. I have a payroll now,
Fair enough.
but
Yeah.
So I think there's something that gets embedded there when you see the way your parent has lived and just like what's become normal. I think we just have different frames of what's normal.
Yeah.
And so I focus more on the benefit, but don't get me wrong. I envision failure a lot. Like, I'm afraid of failure. Like, I think, what if these ads don't work? Or what if I think about that all the time.
But they don't always.
Yeah, they don't always, but we just do our best.
Yeah.
But I guess I just take action more around the upside. Just go for the upside. Yeah.
And so often what we think is a failure or a breakdown is an opportunity. So like your original co-host leaving.
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't be here in this space exactly as you are.
That's true.
If that situation hadn't shifted.
Yeah, that was probably one of my most shaking, kind of earth-shaking things in this business, I would say, because it shook my trust in business, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to hire my co-host from now on because it's too scary. Like the marriage, the podcast marriage is too scary.
And I love our podcast marriage.
Yeah, you guys are fine. You're fine.
It's because we don't have any money on the line.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know, but these things are gifts, right? They're gifts because it lit a fire under my butt in a way. It's like, let's work harder, let's do more, let's make this thing work.
I think
that exemplifies a lot of who you are.
Yes.
Because you started with a co-host because it was initially probably, I'm assuming, a little bit scary to go out on your own and take this chance. Jump off a cliff by yourself.
Yeah.
And then when that co-host left, that safety net, the crutch, it was kind of a crutch, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I ever told you this, that my solo podcast, the theater podcast with Alan Seals, I originally, before I launched it, I was going to have a co-host. Did I ever tell you that?
Oh.
No, but this feels like the TikTok conversation we were having right before Lindsay got
Interesting.
here.
I told Heather before you got here, I said, I've decided to put my face on TikTok. I was like, nobody wants to look at me.
He doesn't even use his voice. He uses the creepy AI voice.
Don't do that. Use your own voice.
Okay, so I'm getting over that hang up. That's a hang up. Okay. But I wanted to have a co-host. I was talking with a friend of mine who ended up producing a lot of the early episodes. But I originally thought that I needed a co-host because by myself I would be uninteresting.
I could see. Yeah, I see what you mean.
And then it was actually really hard because once I decided, you know what, I'm going to take this chance and try to do it on my own. And then it's turned into this whole like lifestyle now that brought us literally all here right now. And it's been really cool and really insane. And then she, due to health reasons, she left helping me anyway. So I would have had to have my own podcast spouse break up and figure out what was going on there. And so like the way that it all turned out, it was just like, it was a really good, really big risk that ended up paying off.
It ended up working out.
I mean, life is here for us.
Yeah.
Right? It is literally here for us. And one of my favorite things about you, you are like, I don't know how I want to describe this, but at hearing you say all of that and the conversations that we've had and the conversation we've had here today, it's just a little honey badger. Like, it's like, whatever, I'm just going to fucking do this thing and it'll be fine. And there's some things that are scary. Like, okay, well move on. How about this? That work? Yep. Nope. Move on. Yeah. And I'm confident there are people listening who are like, I wish I could hone that skill. And I hate to be the one that says it. I think that's a thing you're born with.
Interesting.
I think you can learn to reassess. I can teach you that. Like, that's part of my Brave method, right? Like, you can learn a lot of things. Yeah. But that innate, deep ability to trust that things are going to work out the way they're supposed to, I think that's a thing you're born with.
It's mostly it's nature. It's half nature nurture, I think. And I talked about this with Matthew McConaughey. We were talking about nature versus nurture. But he all right. He was like, it's not 50-50. It's like 90-10, right? Yeah. Nature versus nurture. So you 10% nurture, but what you're born with is what you're born with. And you're right. Like you're born with the lump of clay and you got to shape it. But what that clay is made of, you can't change.
Sure. Yeah. It might be related to past lives too, if you believe in
that. For sure.
There could be something there.
Yeah.
For sure.
And human design work, which I do so much of that. Yeah. The interesting thing though is that 10% of nurture can fuck with people so severely that it could shut down. They could have that innate skill that you have, but the voices in their head, the people in their community are stopping them. So it's that maybe it's there. You got to do the work, right?
And vice versa. If you're born with kind of less of that mentality, the 10% could push you over the edge. Absolutely. You only have to make a few of the right decisions to line up your career and your life for that kind of what you want for fulfillment.
Yeah. You only have to make a few of the right decisions.
Absolutely. And then it's just work. You're going in the right direction. Just keep going.
Damn.
Mic drop.
I feel like we're done now. I mean, that was it. And that seems like such a simple concept, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where can we connect with you? Find you online, all the social medias?
We're all just dumbfounded right now. Like, damn, Lindsay, use that line on stage.
It's true though. It's true. Yeah. So your listeners can come over and find All Ears English podcast. Check it out. All Ears English. Just type it into the search bar if you're already listening to the show and hit follow and hang out with us. Yeah.
And then allearsenglish.com.
Sure. That's our website, allearsenglish.com. I'm on LinkedIn if anyone's interested in starting a podcast or having help starting.
There you go.
Let me know.
And on YouTube?
Yes, on YouTube too. And all of those good things. You can kind of find us on all the socials. However, TikTok I'm not sold on. We're on there, but I'm also struggling.
TikTok would be interesting for you.
You would do really well on TikTok.
Yeah, we're there, but it's more my team is really taking the lead there. I'm not feeling it as much.
You don't have to, but you should really have them dial in on that because there's huge potential.
Yes. Yeah, we got a course. So we're going for it. So
that's awesome.
We bought a course.
You bought a TikTok course?
Yes. Literally.
After you learn everything from the course, can I buy you dinner and you can teach me everything you learned? Because I will never watch that shit.
Of course.
Oh my God. Lindsay, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us.
It's been lovely hanging out with my friends. I appreciate it. Yay. Thanks for interviewing me. I'm honored.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
So Lindsay McMahon.
No, I love our little podcast family.
Right?
It does feel that way. It legitimately feels. I mean, I haven't even talked to Lindsay. You talk to Lindsay all the time, but I haven't even talked to Lindsay in a year. But as soon as she walked in and with all her gorgeous smile and radiating all of that Lindsay energy, it was just like, don't look at my little podcast family.
Yeah. It's like what you were talking about is that I think we're all pointed in the same direction. We're all entrepreneurs. We're all trying to make this work because we want to, not because we have to. And it makes a huge difference, I think, in the energy and the way that you just come off connecting with other people.
Absolutely. I'm so impressed. And I think for listeners, people who are looking for ways to create more intentional risk, to lean in a little bit more fully, Lindsay's story of having a thriving business and just, podcasting on the side because podcasting's cool and I enjoy it. And then going, wait a minute, this is better. Man, just do the things that you love. Just do them and see where they take you.
Yeah, absolutely. And she has, and she did. And I mean, that was even just how we ended up connecting. She was just like, I've got this idea and I'm not sure who to talk to about it. Do you have any, and like just literally putting it out there. And I said, well, I can connect you with these people for that and I'll help you with the rest. And let's make this happen. And then it was, again, embracing that opportunity just to say like, all right, let's try this. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. And I think that's one of your superpowers. And we hit on that the very first time we ever met, that very first dinner, which is you see this tiny seed of potential and you go in. You're like, oh, we will follow this through. And if it doesn't do anything, that's fine. But what if it does?
Right.
And it's just really fun to watch you embrace life like that.
Mega FOMO.
But it's not. It feels like anti-FOMO. Like you're not afraid of missing out. You just desire finding out.
Well, that's interesting because you're right. What I do miss out on, it's okay. I let it go.
That's right.
But if there's that speck of chance, then I'm like, let's water that seed. Let's see what kind of, I don't know what seed this is. Let's see what it grows into.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And Lindsay does that too.
She does.
Lindsay's great, man. She's so much fun to work with. And you talk about somebody who follows through with what they say they're going to do. That's so hard to find. She's
only the second person I've ever actually known that will buy a course and then attend the whole course and then do my partner Bernadette is the other person who does that. And I am always just flabbergasted. I'm like, people fucking do that?
Yeah.
Because I am not those people.
That's how I first learned Final Cut, like a decade ago. Final Cut 7. Yeah, God, a long time ago.
Wow.
I bought a course and it was just like, because I wanted to learn the hotkeys. I wanted to learn what functionality was in there. And then once I figured it out, then it became my bitch.
Y'all are impressive. I need some hand holding and one-on-one coaching. Don't give me a course. I'm not gonna watch this shit. Yeah, I love it. And I love Lindsay and I love our little podcasting community. And I want to say to everyone listening, we really want to hear from you. We really want to know, how are you out embracing chance? Like, are you looking for it? Are you looking for the signs? When are you leaning in? What does that feel like for you? What have you explored? And Alan, you want to tell folks how they can find us?
On the Iggs.
Why do you say that?
Because it makes you laugh.
My children are like, that's so dumb.
Well, I love your children. On the Instagram.
They're like, don't tell anybody you say that.
Was It Chance? And we're Was It Chance podcast at gmail.com. Email us, slip into our DMs. Let us know what's up.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing is, we know that y'all don't think about leaving a review unless we ask. So here we are asking.
Please.
If you have enjoyed the show, please, wherever you listen, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, wherever you go, if you can leave a review, please leave a review and subscribe or follow or whatever that button is on your favorite platform. It means the world to us. We take screenshots and send it back and forth, and it just brings us tremendous joy.
So if you love us, give us 5 stars. We're Was It Chance. If you don't, give us 1
keep
star.
Your mouth shut.
And we're Joe Rogan.
And we're Joe Rogan. Yes. Oh my God, I love it. You guys, you've been listening to Was It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking intentional risk for your creative life. I'm Heather Vickery.
And I'm Alan Seals. Joe Rogan.
No, he is not Joe Rogan.
No, I'm not.
Otherwise, we would not be here.
No.
Thanks for hanging out, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.